Soul of my soul. Maria Gertrude J.W. Rochester, spirit. 1A Sprout. A child's cry cut through the cold night. Timid rays appeared, announcing the dawn. No one was there to help the tiny being who struggled among the cloths, trying to wipe away the blood dripping from her umbilical cord, as if she had been violently ripped from her mother's womb. It was a girl. Her little fingers spread wide, begging the heavens for help. There was yet another abandoned child, a victim of ignorance and irresponsibility. However, nothing remains unrecorded to divine fatherhood. A spiritual entity, almost materializing, approached and looked with immense affection at that fragile creature. How immense was the love he devoted to her and, with tenderness, caressed her sweaty forehead. The child screamed, giving vent to his reflexes, responding to life's demands. Sensing the presence of that spiritual being, he seemed to calm down, only to react, screaming louder, this time with all his might. It was the only way to attract attention. His scream, in the silence of the early morning, attracted someone passing by. He was a Russian peasant who, early in the morning, was looking for work. He wanted to continue his journey, but the persistent crying urged him to return. Who cries in this darkness? Interrupting his itinerary, he turned to the right and, following the cry, approached a humble hut among the trees. Inexplicably, a light illuminated the place, frightening him. My God! A child, guided by the sudden light. He saw her perfectly. Then the glow disappeared, giving him just enough time to make out her little face. Then everything returned to darkness, but his eyes seemed to see beyond. What was a reflection of his retina? Was it the small being that shone? He bent down to lift it from a rough, small bed. Dawn would not be long in coming, and with it the darkness would disappear. Iulián Sumarokov felt sorry for this fragile creature, and, overcome by a strained compassion, his masculine body shivered. He could barely control his sudden emotion. He took the child in his arms, gathered the cloths, patted them together, and covered her, cuddling her to the warmth of his chest. The child stopped crying, and he, still somewhat dazed, unsure what to do, looked at the dawn that was dyeing the horizon red. Following his heart's impulse, he left, carrying the tiny bundle. No one else existed in that solitude. Poor thing, they abandoned you. Who would have such a cruel heart? Iulián was a kind of casual employee who worked here and there to support himself and his family. This morning, he was heading to work earlier than usual. He enjoyed the silence of nature and, especially, the autumn mornings. He was a large, clumsy man with a gentle and tender heart. His kind and affectionate appearance contrasted with his physique. His blue eyes seemed to smile. There was no malice in them. His gesture of solidarity changed his destiny forever. Iulián Sumarokov returned to the road, and instead of walking towards work, he returned to home. There were about 5 versts between his house and the hut, and he was very fast. Accustomed to the curves and bumps of the road, he would be at home with the small bundle before dawn. When he reached the threshold, he called to his wife. "Tu, Anna Matuchka, look what I found." "What is this, Iulián?" "I found him alone crying in a hut by the side of the road." The woman took the child from his arms and examined her, removing the cloths. "My God, Iulián, she's bleeding. It's a girl." The couple gave her first aid and, taking a basin of warm water, cleaned her thoroughly. After dressing the wound, Anna Sumarokov stanced the bleeding and bandaged her navel, as if she were a skilled nurse. The woman had experience in this matter. She had had 3 children. Then she began feeding her. Iulián, interested, followed her every step, trying to be helpful. "Equals. Whose will it be, Iulián?" They examined the cloths that told them nothing about his identity. Carrot? Could it be someone from the neighborhood? Some young girl who wanted to hide her pregnancy from her parents? 3. I know nothing. Anachka. She was crying loudly when I found her. I followed her crying and found her inside an uninhabited hut on the road, near the Norobod family's wheat field. If they abandoned her, it's because they don't want her. Only someone heartless or desperate would abandon this poor child, the woman argued, looking tenderly at the girl who now slept in her arms. They had 3 children, but their hearts were open to receive that little daughter who came to them as a gift from heaven. The red sun of Osiris had not yet fully risen on the horizon, and its luminous rays already announced its splendor. Arm, Iulián said enthusiastically, I've always wanted a little girl. God has given us 3 beautiful children, and I'm happy with our boys, I confess. When Iulián arrived, my heart filled with joy. When we had our second, I was eagerly awaiting a girl to brighten my days. But God sent us Pavel. When you became pregnant for the 3rd time, I thought, this time will be a girl. But still, God didn't listen to my pleas and sent us Nicholas. When the doctor declared you could no longer have children, my heart was saddened because I felt I had lost my chance at a little girl. Her husband's voice was sweet and tender. His blue eyes had a different shine, a sparkle never before seen. A hint of jealousy bothered her, hurting her heart. You never told me this, my love. Why am I only now hearing such an outburst? Without thinking that he might hurt his wife, Iulián, eager to shelter the child, impetuously argued, Honey, let's adopt this girl and keep it secret, because I don't think anyone has seen me this morning. Arma looked at her husband knowingly, noticing once again the sparkle in his eyes. Despite the unexpected jealousy that welled up in her heart, she saw the little being sleeping peacefully in her arms, so helpless and needy that she felt ashamed and pushed away such feelings, allowing maternal love to take over her soul. She was happy with her 3 children and her husband. Her joy was complete. And, loving Iulián more than ever, knowing the sweetness of his soul, she would never deny him that happiness. 1 Russian itinerary measure, equivalent to 1067 meters. Editor's note. To my dear. Note from the spiritual author. 3 diminutive of Anna. Author's note. Iulián, my love, I only fear that after some time, after we've grown fond of her, someone will come and claim her. Look, my friend, it was dark, and who knows, maybe someone was watching you. I can't tell you that dawn had barely broken. It was still very dark, yet I believe my gesture went unnoticed by the world. Let's wait, Iulián. Our children will have to know the truth. What will we tell them? And how will we talk about a new child in our home without having to explain ourselves to the neighbors? Iulián's imagination ran wild. It didn't take a minute for him to devise a subtle plan. It's easy. We'll tell the children to be quiet. We'll hide the fact from the neighbors, and we'll be able to tell them you're pregnant. And after a few months, we'll give birth to our daughter. Since all children are born the same, we'll say she was premature and that you won't be allowed to have visitors. That way, we'll hide the truth from others. Your plan seems feasible. Arma agreed, somewhat reluctantly. I can fake a pregnancy. It's easy. We'll fool the children. Children don't usually keep secrets. Husband and wife plotted in detail to hide the fact from everyone, including their children. From that day forward, Anna would show signs of pregnancy and, within a few months, give birth. The couple's plan seemed a bit naive, but they were both so committed that, if necessary, they would keep their children away from home for a few months to avoid arousing suspicion, and thus hide the child, until time gave them the conditions to present her as their legitimate daughter. No one will need to know the truth, Iulián thought. His oldest son was 8, the youngest 3, and he wanted that daughter so much. Iulián didn't go to work that day. He immediately set about organizing the basement of the house, an uninhabited place, ideal for sheltering his little princess. He wanted her to grow up as his real daughter. In an instant, he cleaned and organized the space where no one would hear her cries. It was only for a short time. He provided a large iron pot with crackling embers to heat the basement. His heart rejoiced. Never in his life had he felt so much affection and love. That fragile, abandoned little girl had forever taken possession of his soul, and for her he would fight an army. He felt rewarded by God, who had led him to the hut on the road. Woe to the man who rejected her, because he loved her, and how he loved her. Everything was planned, down to the smallest detail. In the couple's minds, the disguise was only for a short time, and soon they could present her to the world without fear. Anna took what she needed to the hiding place, leaving no trace, before the boys woke up. Iulián, wouldn't it be better if we took the boys to Uncle Nicholas's farm, since you want to hide the girl from them? Although, I would still prefer if we told them the truth. No, Arma, it's good to them to grow up as if they were brothers, even if there are no true blood ties. I've heard many opinions about the power of blood in relationships. You're right on one hand, Iulián, but our children would learn to love and respect her as their little sister. I don't trust you, Arma, and they themselves might say she's not really their sister. Sooner or later, this could happen, and I'd rather the secret stay just between us. I trust you completely. She won over her husband with her arguments, and Arma submitted, from that day forward, to the false pregnancy and the juggling act of hiding the newborn. She placed a small pillow on her belly, making it appear that she was already 6 months pregnant. Her thick, gathered skirts disguised and thickened her waist. Iulián later passed through the same place again, the path that led him to the farm of Norobod. Now, in broad daylight, pretending to look for an old tool, entered the hut. He went to check if there were any traces of that early morning that would indicate a child had been there. However, he was surprised to find a note on the hutch. Did they put it in later, or had he not noticed it? Doubt darkened his face. The darkness had prevented him from seeing his surroundings. He hadn't noticed the paper, just taking care to welcome the child. He looked in a crate. There was no sign, but that carefully folded piece of paper frightened him. It was written, "This girl is the fruit of forbidden love. I have to abandon her to the fate that God will give her. Her mother doesn't know what's going on. For love's sake, welcome her. One day you will be duly rewarded." The handwriting on the note and signed had been disguised, for besides being shaky, it had several nuances. Iulián kept it carefully. The hut, doorless and windowless, was a nest of snakes, lizards, bats, and other venomous animals. All around him was silent, only the hiss of the autumn wind. A peasant soul, shrewd and cautious, Iulián began to examine the ground and surroundings, searching for some clue because, in truth, what he wanted to know was if anyone had seen him. On the thin snow were traces of boot heels, some broken branches, crumpled straw, and horse hooves. These clues meant nothing to him, perhaps to an expert. To him, they only told him that someone had secretly left a child there and hurried away, fearing discovery. At least I hope no one else finds out about this. Then I can rest assured with my secret, he mused. Satisfied, he continued on his way to the farm, where he was to provide services, in order to justify his absence and his wife's condition. To the lie, Iulián Ivanovna Sumarokov, at home, tried to calm down and hide the abandoned girl from her children. Pavel, the second son, who was 6 years old, was the most attached to her of the three. From birth, he showed himself to be a boy different from the others, extremely delicate in his manners, surrounding her with pampering, as if he were a little prince, doing everything to please her, showing her immense affection. Pavel was one of those boys who brighten any mother's life. Seeing her tired or sad, he would bring her a flower or kiss her hands, caress her face, and stroke her hair. Anna's affection for him was evident, an exclusive affection he earned day by day. It is these small acts of kindness that gradually define the emotional preferences between parents and children and establish a bond within family relationships. Now, Iulián, the firstborn, very similar to his father in temperament and physique, affable, happy, somewhat naive. He was a beautiful boy, muscular and tough. He was 8 years old and looked like a man, copying his father in everything. Nicolau, the youngest, stood out from the rest, quiet and serious, too young to yet demonstrate his abilities. It was unclear exactly who he resembled. Rather, it was a mix. His face was a little darker than the others, his hair curly. Of all of them, he seemed the most handsome and gallant, with his large, dark eyes shaded by long, thick lashes. Anna had maternal devotion to the three of them. However, Pavel was that son of the heart who touched her soul and knew how to soothe it. Sometimes this preference aroused jealousy in others, even in her husband, but it never became a major problem between them. But her preference did not go unnoticed by her other children and her husband, who sometimes looked at them with displeasure, especially when they were together in that relationship in which two souls unite and are self-sufficient, nothing else interested, isolating themselves from others. With the girl's arrival, Pavel, due to his close affinity with his mother and concern he showed her, attended to her every gesture, felt different that day. Unaware of the reason, he clearly sensed that his mother was avoiding him, but his dark eyes followed her work, trying to guess. Arma tried every means to keep him away, assigning him small tasks, and gaining time to attend to the new guest. Iulián and Pavel, I want you to go to Larissa's house and get some flour. I plan to make cakes today, she said, handing them a bowl. Don't be late. The distance between her house and her friends was long, more than 3 versts. She calculated at least 2 hours, including the round trip. Enough time to breastfeed the child. The 2 boys set off in a cart carrying the bowl, followed by Prigov, their dog. Watching them disappear down the road, she noticed that little Nicholas was playing with one of the puppies. Relieved, she could now care for the little one without fear of discovery. It would be impossible to hide the girl from her children for long. They used to play around searching the entire house, and if she cried loudly, they would surely discover her. The best thing would be to take them to Uncle Lau's farm for a few days, and thus by time, Arma ran to the basement. There was the baby, the cloths wet. It was time to breastfeed. Alone with the girl, he examined her closely. He couldn't yet identify her. She was so small. Only time would pass before he could define the exact color of her eyes and the features of her face. He didn't feel a truly maternal inclination toward her. He was simply fulfilling a duty. His protective instinct, however, overcame any unhappy feelings. She was a lonely, abandoned creature, and he needed her. His generous heart would have welcomed even an abandoned dog, let alone a child. The poor foundling seemed to understand her situation and cried as little as possible, as if to avoid compromising her future parents, respecting their decisions. She drank greedily, the drops of milk, fighting for her survival. Poor thing, what are we going to do? We can't hide her all day. Iulián is demanding so much, we could just tell the children. It wouldn't do any harm, she reflected. After nursing her, she changed her and, warming her, snuggled her to her heart, making her fall asleep. She seemed so nice. She doesn't give me any trouble. And he began to think about his real mother. Who could this poor woman be with such courage to abandon such a fragile creature? Who could it be? I could easily find out by snooping around. But how? If I'm unable to go out. I could easily call one of my friends and speculate. Nothing could get him out of his head that the girl didn't belong to the neighborhood, but to someone who lived in the city, which wasn't that far away. There were few girls in the neighborhood, and none of them showed signs of a dubious relationship or signs of pregnancy. The thoughts that ran through his head were most interesting. Anna Ivanovna was a good woman and wife, having married young, having had 3 children and not yet 30. She was not a beauty, but her delicate features gave her the appearance of a certain nobility. Her wavy, silky hair shone in the sun, golden brown hair, always tied with velvet ribbon or a silk scarf. Her brown eyes, lined with thick, long lashes, doted on her face. Her small, pink mouth, when closed, was heart-shaped. A hard worker, she did all the household chores to help Iulián, who couldn't afford a servant, and thanks to her rough and tumble work, through constant cleaning exercises, she kept herself slim, finding little time for rest. At night, however, she felt severe pain in her legs and stomach, but she rarely complained, because Mr. Iulián also devoted himself to labor in the surrounding area, working rough jobs and facing the lashes of rain, snow, and wind. They went to bed with the evening twilight and left before dawn. Their day began at dawn. They worked to save money and buy their own farm, where they would grow rye and raise poultry. This was their dream, and they were close to achieving it. Iulián, the eldest son, was receiving his first lessons from a teacher who came to the village weekly. Pavel would follow his brother that year. Arma would spend much of her time alone with Nicolo. The girl's arrival would change all her plans. She felt very uneasy. That lie, in a way, disconcerted her. Sincere in nature, she liked everything out in the open, but she would play into hands of the husband she loved and knew nothing about refusing. She tried to appear natural, finding it difficult to disguise herself at all times, especially in front of Pavel. She divided household chores among her 2 children, keeping them far from the basement and keeping the door locked, safe from suspicion. It was with great relief that she welcomed her husband home that afternoon. The boys, seeing their father, ran to hug him. It wasn't common to see him so early. "Dad, it's so early in your home?" Iulián wondered. "We have news." "Any news?" "Tell us, Dad." He hugged Anna and, gathering the children together, announced, "My children, you are going to gain another little brother." The boys, surprised by the news, didn't know if it was good or bad. Their expressions showed that their surprise had left them speechless. Pavel, however, was the only one to show a hint of annoyance. He hadn't planned on sharing his mother's love with another sibling. Instinctively, he looked at his mother's suddenly enlarged belly and said, "I've never seen you so fat." He hugged her, and Anna gently pushed him away, afraid that her son would notice the pillow. He remembered a fat woman who had given birth to twins. Despite her young age, she knew what childbirth was like. The woman would gain weight like a pig and then lock herself in a room, only to emerge days later with a crying, red-faced baby. This was her conception of pregnancy and birth. Pavel felt sorry for the thought that his mother would gain so much weight and then lock herself in her room. Well, Pavel, this whole gaining weight thing is relative. Suddenly, the belly appears, and he went inside the house, tending to his bread. "I'm going to check the oven and make sure my bread isn't burning. My brave sons, you're going to take care of Mommy while I'm away. Don't let her gain weight and help her with everything. If anything unexpected happens, run and call me if I'm far away. Deal? You're my little man, and I hope you have a girl now. How about it? Would you like a sister?" "That's what I wanted most, Dad, is to have a sister," said Iulián. And you, Pavel, don't you say anything?" "It doesn't matter to me. Girls." "Oh, I don't know, Dad. It's all the same." Iulián played with his children and made plans for the future, while they waited for bread that was already smelling in the oven. Mayra. Iulián was eager to ask Anna about the little girl. He waited for a cue to sneak into the basement. The boys were restless and alert as ever. Anna was waiting for them, with a table full of things they loved: bowl of bread, honey, butter, fresh cheese, tea for the husband, hot and kvass. He waited patiently for them to wash and begin their meal. Seeing them entertained, he discreetly disappeared. He went to the basement to check if the little one was still asleep. He found her sleeping peacefully, so defenseless, oblivious to her surroundings and her fate. He saw that she was breathing calmly and returned quickly so as not to arouse suspicion. Iulián was entertaining the boys, eating and telling them stories about the forest, the frozen river, and animals when Anna entered. His gaze turned to her in silent inquiry. The complicity between the spouses was growing so much that even the smallest gestures became veritable codes. An unexpected form of communication had been established between them, amusing them and bringing them closer together. The children suspected nothing and were delighted with their parents' new behavior. At night, after their children fell asleep, they would take the little one to her room, locking the door. A week passed in this discreet feat. "Iulián, what name shall we give you?"